Hey there, Olagerinos. It's me, John Tatey, and it's time for another Basement Breakdown. I'm joined by Bingo Bronson this week. You may be wondering where Gus is. Let me just put it this way. Sometimes when you get the band back together, it doesn't quite shake out the way you thought it would. Gus is one of the smartest and savviest TV people I've ever met, so we wish him all the best. It's just me for now. Maybe we'll get some special guests in here. Also, I ditched the tie because, hey, we're in my basement. Like, who am I kidding, right? All that matters is how the TV looks, so let's get to it. Better Call Saul, Season 4, Episode 3, Something Beautiful. Please join me as I have another Basement Breakdown. Okay, let's start off, as usual, with our shots of the show. And I've got one shot that is going to take me forever to unpack because there's so much in this one shot of Kim looking through the Mesa Verde models, looking through the little windows in those Mesa Verde future facility models. Let's talk about how we get to this shot first, because there's some important setup. Last time here on the Basement Breakdown, we talked about how blue and gold are the default color scheme. They're the colors of the desert. It's cool and warm. It's an easy contrast that makes pretty much any shot look good. And we talked about how last week it was really a stage setter and was just drenched in this blue and gold. It makes it more vivid when you depart from that color scheme. It makes those moments stick out a little bit. And here, just as we set it up, here's a scene this week where Kim's in a Mesa Verde conference room, and it's all muted. We see the blues and golds on the wall, as we often do on Better Call Saul, and then she's taken into the room where they have all these models up, and the bank president is boasting about his future plans. And look at the colors we get here. Suddenly there are these deep reds and purples, and it feels like a rainbow. Look out for rainbows on Better Call Saul. If you've watched the past shows that we've done about Better Call Saul, you know that rainbows tend to indicate we're in someone's dream, or we're in an environment where we're hopeful about the future. We're pursuing a dream, and the rainbow, somewhere over the rainbow, is just the ultimate achievement. And for this bank president, all these little models he's got of future branches are his rainbow dreams. So in this scene, Kim's walking through someone else's dream, and the rainbows just accentuate that. It feels almost otherworldly, like she's on another planet here. And it makes me think about how Kim, for some time on the show now, has been walking through someone else's dream in the form of Jimmy. She went to the Rainbow Law Office, right? That's the most vivid example I can give you. That was their most hopeful moment. And she's been living in that dream, and more accurately, living with the consequences of that dream for some time now. So we see her looking through these windows, and the shot kind of bars her in. She's almost imprisoned in this shot in someone else's dream. And I think that really gets at her state of mind and why she finds it so difficult to deal with this pretty standard display of bank hopes. I mean, this is as exciting as bank hopes and dreams get, right? Also, another thing Better Call Saul loves is referencing classic film and TV tropes. And look, this image of Kim looking through the window is the classic monster in the window shot. Jurassic Park, I think, is the best modern example. They do it throughout the series. Spielberg loves this kind of shot. But it goes all the way back to King Kong in 1933, with King Kong peeking through the window of the apartments in the skyscraper he's climbing up. The composition of that shot looks just like this one of Kim. And to me, it brought out the fact that Kim feels a little bit like a monster right now. I mean, she's full of anger this season. And she's angry on behalf of someone else. My son is angry right now that he has to go to bed. So we'll pause for that. I think Kim feels like a monster right now. We've seen how she's full of anger. I mean, the way she blew up at Howard last week, she's full of anger, and she's full of anger on someone else's behalf who doesn't seem that angry himself. So she has this sort of detached anger that I think we have seen metastasizing like a cancer in her. And I just feel like in this shot, she's feeling that so deeply. Trapped in someone else's dream, looking through someone else's window even, you could say, in this sickening rainbow fantasy. That's my shot of the show. Let's talk about lines a little bit. I got some vertical lines for you. I got some horizontal lines. I've even got some diagonal lines for you in this episode. What more could you want, right? Let's start with the vertical line. So when Kim comes into the Mesa Verde offices, she sees this familiar sculpture of a cowboy riding a horse. Yet she stops and hesitates in front of the sculpture on her way out. And the way her point of view is framed on the way out, suddenly we can see the split in the middle of the sculpture. So I looked at that shot and I said, okay, what is this saying to me? Why are we pausing to see Kim look at this split in the cowboy? And I started to think, well, maybe Kim feels like she's coming apart right now. And, you know, I kind of went with that because I didn't have anything better, but it didn't feel quite right. Last season was the season when Kim was really coming apart. It's something different happening within her now. Kim. On the very last shot of this episode, Kim is distraught over the letter that Chuck wrote to Jimmy, and let me get into that a little bit more in a second. But she runs into the bedroom and sort of half closes the door, and the final shot is that door cutting Jimmy right down the middle. So maybe there's two Jimmys. Let's say there's Slippin' Jimmy and there's Jimmy McGill. Slippin' Jimmy, we all know how he behaves, and Jimmy McGill is the potentially upstanding brother of Chuck McGill, right? I feel like by seeing this door close on half of Jimmy, it's saying that the door has closed on Jimmy McGill. That half of Jimmy is dead. And I think that this scene is Kim realizing that. Or maybe just becoming fully aware of it. I think we've seen her realizing it over a few episodes, right? The person Kim has been fighting for, the person whose rainbow dream she's been living in, that person is gone. Jimmy McGill is gone, and she realizes it as he's reading this letter. What moment does the letter come from? It's undated, Jimmy says. And then as he reads it, it becomes clear that it comes from a moment when Jimmy was hacking away in the mailroom at HHM, making something of his life, nothing grand, but making a simple, upstanding life. And Chuck in the letter sounds really proud of him. And Kim is taken back to that moment. She's taken back to that moment when she was there in the mailroom with Jimmy, and they both had their hopes and dreams. And now look at them. Directionless, broken people who have no real semblance of a dream to hang on to right now. You can see why she's overwhelmed by the letter, and even more so because Jimmy is not moved by it. That Jimmy she knew in the mailroom, he's either locked away in a box somewhere in Jimmy, or he's dead. And I think that the final shot of the show with that door closing indicates to me that he's dead. Those vertical lines are so important, that pair of vertical lines. Kim looking at the cowboy split down the middle, and then Jimmy being split down the middle by the door at the end of the show. Those are key shots. Maybe they should have been the shots of the show, but you know what? I'm in charge here, okay?
Oh, Mr. Fring.
Horizontal lines with Gale. Remember Gale, our human Breaking Bad Easter egg in this episode. Gale, Gus Fring's first meth chemist. Gus comes in, they chat a little bit. There's this red line on the wall above them for so much of the conversation. And then at the moment when Gale opens his drawer to get out the stuff he doesn't want everybody to see, and he's kind of going like this. He's kind of putting his chin up and looking to see who's out there. And his head crosses that red line on the wall. Now look, they chose this framing for a reason, okay? And that line, again, is going straight through his head. I think it's another cute little hint that Gale is getting in over his head too, which, like, of course he is. We already know that from Breaking Bad. Gale's doomed. But this is a little hint at that.
That's very useful information.
I promised you diagonal lines, and I'm going to deliver. The Salamancas were hit. So we've got this conversation between Juan Bolsa and Gus Fring. Juan Bolsa, he's in the desert, the warm colors. One of our commenters that we mentioned last week, his name is Crazy Designer YLR, at least that's what he goes by on YouTube, talked about his notion that warmer colors are more related to the underworld, to crime. We sort of linked them to maybe disrespectable activities, broadened it out a little bit, but bad stuff, let's say, okay? And in this exchange, Juan Bolsa is drenched in the warm colors, and Gus Fring, as he often is surrounded by coolness because he's operating in the legitimate sphere of society right now. I feel like Juan Bolsa on the other end thinks that Gus Fring is in the desert with him, and the color contrast is set up to indicate that no, they are not going in the same direction. But lines, I promised you diagonal lines, right? Well, look at the lines in this wide shot behind Juan Bolsa. We've got these lines in the sky, and they're coming from all directions. And look, I don't think that the producers of Better Call Saul hired planes to leave contrails in every direction, but they chose this shot in the edit, and I believe for a reason, because it gives you a sense of the scattered state of Juan Bolsa's mind. He doesn't know where these attacks are coming from, where this attack on Nacho is coming from, right? Now look at the lines behind Gus. The lines behind him, these blue lines of the research facility, all converge to a common point, and they follow the direction of Gus's movement. It just gives you a feel for the fact that Juan Bolsa right now doesn't know which way to look, but Gus is focused. He's going in a direction. He has a clear vector, and the lines behind him really feed into that. Follow the lines that you see on screen. Better Call Saul uses them a lot. I mean, just look in this episode. We had vertical, we had horizontal, and we had diagonal. Hey, your comments on the YouTube videos have been great. Please keep it up. It's great to talk to you. You can hit me up on Twitter, but seemingly nobody wants to, and that's fine with me. We should all be spending less time on Twitter, I told myself. That's it for the Basement Breakdown this week. Hey, the comments on YouTube, like I've said, have been great. Keep hitting me up there. Twitter me, whatever. Maybe we'll have a guest critic next week. Maybe not. It sure is fun to watch the show with you, though. I'll see you next week. So long for now.